In part 2 of the drill battery rebuild series, we're going to be taking these cells, putting them in these batteries, welding, soldering, doing all the fun things. So let's get started with today's video. Now, the first thing we need to do is remove these old tabs, but we want to be careful because I'm going to show you how to remake these tabs. So I'm going to get this put up in the vise, and let's carefully take these tabs off of this battery pack. So I've got the pack here secured in my pan vise. I would recommend that you do something to hold it because it's kind of squirrely in your hands and things. But we're going to use the X-Acto knife like we used in the Salvage Your Cells video. That link will be up here in case you didn't see that. And we're going to carefully start working up underneath these tabs. Now, I'm going to tell you this. From your Salvage and Cells video that we did, the can is negative, the top is positive, so you want to be very careful not to short the cell out, okay? So if you don't know what you're doing, please don't attempt this because you're going to burn your house down. But once we have a little bit of the tab exposed, then we can take and very carefully break those welds. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll the tab just like this, and I want to carefully break the weld, just like that. Break those welds. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done for all of the rest of these on here. But remember, we want to take and just roll and break the weld. Don't cut the tab because we want to save it because we want to replicate this. So there we go. That is the first tab released, ready to go. So I'm just going to take and work my way around the rest of them doing the same thing. Now, when we come to this one, it is a little bit different. So what we're going to have to do with this one is we're going to have to pry up this end and then roll it completely over. So I want to be very careful, and I'm going to use this as leverage. If you have been paying attention, I'm using this as a leverage. I'm just going to take and pry the end of this is. By the way, make sure you're always wearing safety glasses. I am wearing glasses right now because this can be dangerous. So we're going to pry that end up, and I'm going to work my things in here, make sure I still get it good in the camera shot. Makes it hard to do things when you got to record it, but we're going to take and roll up that tab. This one's welded really good. There we go. We're going to roll up that tab like that. Then we're going to have to roll that up out of the way. And then we're going to have to try to take and grab this the best we can and pry up that little edge and roll this tab. So it's okay if we damage this tab because this is just going to be one solid piece anyway. But so this one I am going to have to cut just like that. And then there we go. That tab is loose. That tab was a rough one right there. That one was stuck. So let's get to the other side. And there goes one cell falling out. Some of these cells may come out once you get it done, so just be aware of that. That's why I'm keeping my hand right here. And there we go. All the tabs have been released, and so we'll get to replicating these. Now, I'm not going to show you pulling the tabs off of this battery pack because it's a lot simpler, and it's the same thing. So I'm going to get both. I'm going to get this one done now, and then we'll get to making new tabs. By the way, for anyone who is interested, the Craftsman pack was built with these Samsung 13Bs. Now, I do want to show you why you need to be careful. I was trying to pull this weld off. It was too tight. And do you see that right there? I busted a hole in the bottom of that sail. I ripped a hole in the bottom of it. So now this sail is subject to going up. So that's why it's very dangerous when you do something like this. And I only say that only professionals should do it. So depending on how strong the welds are on your pack, like on this Black & Decker one, I'm now going to choose to cut the tabs off and then just try to replicate them the best I can because the welds are pulling these cells apart. So make sure you are being extremely careful when you do something like this. And only do it if you know what you're doing because, again, you're going to burn your house down. Tabs have been cleared into an individual baggie, and it's going in the burn baler to make sure if it does go up, it will not hurt anything. Safety should be your #1 priority when doing anything like this. Well, even though everything did not go to plan, we still have some tabs for reference, and of course everything here on the Craftsman battery. So let me show you how to replicate these tabs. The first thing we got to do is get this board off of this one, and it's held by a little squeeze of glue, it looks like right here, and nowhere else. So I'm just going to take my knife, and we're going to get up underneath there and just slice that glue up a little bit and see if we can't pry it off. So looks like I'm gonna have to bring in the big guns for this one. So I'll take that back. As I was working it a little bit, it did just pop apart. There was just a little bit of glue right there, and there we go. That is what the Craftsman battery monitor board looks like. Again, this is not a BMS. As you can see, there are no input or output FETs or anything, just this fuse, but it does monitor the cells to communicate with a charger, and we may talk about that in a later video. So let's get to looking at these tabs. So I want to desolder these tabs so that way I can replicate them. That was the hope for the Black & Decker battery as well. However, with the cell getting a hole in it, we had to do a different route. Again, if you don't know what you're doing, this can be very, very hard. So that's one tab right there. And then we want to take, I am putting extra solder onto the solder joint here when I go to take it off, so that way it'll flow a little easier. And then we'll take this out to the solder sucker and get all the solder off of it. Or if you have one of those squeeze type ones, that will work as well. So we're going to be putting some new solder on here just to get everything flowing. And then we'll grab I'm just rotating in between my tweezers and my side cutters because that is what is in my reach. There's no reason, but it's what's in my reach. So we'll get that heated up quite nicely, and then we'll pull this tab out eventually. There we go. All right, and there we go. Everything's desoldered. Now let's look at duplicating these tabs. So I'm going to remake this tab here. So I've made sure to take pictures. I know where it needs to bend in things. But this looks like 1/2-inch tab material. And if you look here, this is 1/2-inch tab material. Yeah, it's just about like that. But the problem is it has an offset. If I can grab it here, it has an offset. So how am I going to duplicate that offset? Well, I'm going to do that with this 750 thousandths or 3/4 of an inch tab right here. So let me show you how I'm going to do this. So I'm going to take it, lay it flat, and I'm going to take my hammer, and I'm just going to flatten it out the best I can. Now there is a little bit of a lip here because of the solder. Probably should have put something underneath it, but it's fine. This is a workbench, but I'm just going to take and flatten it out the best I can because I want to trace this profile onto this wider tab here. So I'm going to take my Sharpie and I'm just going to kind of draw the outline around it. Now, this is not an exact science, right? So you know, just do the best you can. But there we go. That is our general profile. Now, I know that this is not quite flat, so I'm going to leave a little extra up here when I go to cut it out. But let's grab our scissors and cut it out. Now, I've zoomed out just a little bit, but let's take our scissors. Regular old scissors can cut nickel tab, in case you did not know. So I'm just going to take and I'm going to cut up like this. Then I'm going to cut across like this, leaving a little bit of extra. Then I'm going to cut down. Arts and crafts. Who knew we would be doing a craft today? Well, I did, but y'all didn't. And then we're just going to take, it's going to be hard to do this cut on camera. Take and cut up. Just like that. And there we go. We have a replica tab with that offset that we can use to redo this with. Now, I do want to cut the little corners off just to make sure that we have no sharp edges or burrs. But there we go. And there we go, a tab replicated, ready to go back into our battery pack. Now, the negative and positive of this are the same, so I will make one more of these and then we'll get to the cell connections. Now let's get to the cell tabs. So I'm going to take and roll these back out and get them as flat as possible. Same thing with this, and do all 4 of these. And we're going to use the same method that we used before. We're going to take and flatten it out the best we can so we can replicate it the best we can. Now we're going to do this one a little bit different. Okay, so we have it flattened out, and this is going to be just a piece of 1/2 inch material right here, but for the sail tap, I'm going to use a piece of 1/4 inch material, and I'm going to take and do like this. This is a very common practice here in the battery industry to do something like this. So I'm just going to take a piece here and weld it there, but I want to know how long this is. So let me grab my calipers. I want to know how long this piece is. So let's get this measured here. Have my calipers, and I'm just going to eyeball it. So that's looking like 760 thousandths. So if we increase it to about 800 thousandths, that should take up what was left of the bend right here from the solder. So I'm going to call that 800 thousandths, and then that will be plus the 1/2 inch for the solder joint. So I'm going to find some 1/4 inch wide tab and cut it to this length, and then weld these two together for the cell tap for the Craftsman battery. Now let's see what we're going to do about the Black & Decker battery. So for the Black & Decker battery, I went ahead and slid the main power cells in here. So this is right at 1/2 inch material, and if we see here, the 1/2 inch material will slide just fine in there. So I'm just going to use 1/2 inch material here for the power. Now I want to know how long this is. So we're going to see here 1.1. So let's call that 1.2. And then for the negative main trace, we're going to bend this up as best as we can. This is 1/2 inch material as well, and you can see how far offset it is. So we're going to measure that, 1.12. So let's just make them both 1.15, and I think it will be okay. But the main problem is the connecting tabs. So let's see what we're going to do about that. So I do have one left that I left on the end of this wire, so I'm going to take and desolder that while holding on to it, because, you know, that's the smart thing to do. And I'm going to desolder that. So this is the only one that we have salvaged left from the teardown. So this is going to be 1/2 inch material here. So we're going to do with the same thing that we did before. So all I need to know is how long. All I need to know is how long from here to here is off of my 1/2 inch material. So again, to the calipers, and we're going to see how long this is. What are we looking at here? We're just going to eyeball it again. 350. I'm going to call that 350. So 800 coming off that half-inch tab for the Craftsman battery, 350 coming off of here. Let's go to the welder and let's start making some tabs. Now let's make some tabs. So I'm out here in the beautiful PTI production facility, and I've already got my half-inch tabs cut. So if it'll focus here, I've already got my half-inch tabs cut. And so they're about 1.2 inches wide, and I've already trimmed the edges. And then I have, I was wrong before, this is not 250, this is 1/8/7 thick tab. So I have some 1/8/7 thick tab here. We already had these 1.5 inch ones in stock, so it's 1.5 inches long, which is 200 thousandths more than we need for the Craftsman, and then a whole lot longer than we need for the Black & Decker, but I'm just going to go ahead and weld these up and then trim them down. Now, a lot of you out there have resistance welders, and that is what I would recommend if you're going to do your own DIY battery packs or repairs, is that you need a resistance welder. They are widely available now and easy to use. So, you always want to make sure that your electrodes are clean. You use a little bit of sandpaper, you know, just make sure that they are they're clean and burr-free. You don't want them to be burnt or anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a whole lot of these. Since the Black & Decker battery and the Craftsman battery use right at the same architecture here as far as the cell taps go, I'm going to make, well, I guess 8 of these. So it's quite simple. What you need to do is just, you want to take and put the tab in the middle as much as you can. You want to put it in the middle. Now, I am freehanding this. It would be better if you fixtured it or something, but in the middle. I want to make sure that it is completely lined up. It is difficult to do this on camera, so bear with me here. But I'm going to just take it and then twist. I want to twist and pop it off. And there we go. There is our weld. Now, I'm a little off-center there. I don't think it'll hurt anything, but I am a little off-center there. And I'm going to do another weld right here, and I'm going to pop it off. So there we go. That is replicating this tab. So you see, we're not that far off. I think there's at least that much forgiveness. Whatever that is, that 1/16, maybe less than that. I think there is that much forgiveness in the tab. So yeah, there we go. I'm going to make about, I don't know, 8 more of these. Well, I can do pretty good when I'm not on camera. So I've got everything ready. Let's get to actually welding up these battery cell stacks. So something you always want to do before you get to welding cells is what's called a pull test. So I'm just going to weld this tab here to this cell, and I have a weld joint right here. So I want to make sure that my weld joint is bonded to the cell. So just like in the salvaging cells video, I'm going to take and pull this tab off, and what I want to see, well, it's ripping, which is good, but what I want to see is that it left nuggets behind. I want to see that it left welds behind, that it's not just putting down a little bit of weld and it's not welding all the way through the cell. Now let's get on with the video. So I have all of my tabs and everything ready to rebuild the Craftsman pack with. Went ahead and trimmed up these to the length they need to be off camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Craftsman housing, and I'm going to put the circuit board back on it, and the way it goes, it does have an arrow on it, so you know which way it goes. Very nicely designed, by the way. And I'm going to take it, I'm going to put my cells in it. So this is the negative most, and when you have a series pack like this, it goes in order. So it'll go negative most, positive most, to the negative most, positive most, on up, zigzagging along until we get here to the positive most. So this will be cell 0 or cell negative, and it snaps in here quite nicely. So that's your cell negative. And then cell number 2 here, positive. It's marked here on the plastics. And then cell negative, then cell positive, just like that. One didn't want to go in there, but I got it. Cell positive, and then cell negative right here. So sometimes you have to put a little dab of glue or something on these cells, but they seem to be held in here quite nicely. So let's get to welding this pack up, and I guess we'll start with the negative most here. Okay, I want to get a little bit better of a shot here, but let's weld on this negative most tab. Now remember, these tabs are the same for the positive and negative. So I'm going to line it up with the opening of the shrink wrap. So I'm going to line it up with where the shrink wrap opens up. We're going to put it as straight as I possibly can here in this opening. And then I'm just going to do hit, hit, and kick the camera, and then hit just like that, and there we go. Let's move on to the rest of it. Okay, so I readjusted the camera slightly, so let's go on. So I want to put this here. Now you can see that it's not fitting quite right. So if you can see, it's not fitting quite right in here. I need to take and trim a little bit off this edge. So depending on, you know, how good you are at cutting and things, we handmade all of these tabs. So you may have to take and mess with them just a little bit in order to get them to go up in here. I think I need to take a little more off that edge. Okay, now our fit should be perfect, and there we go. Now, when you're welding on a positive tab like this, like is under here, you need to make sure you know where that positive tab is, because if you get off any which way, you will blow a hole in the middle of the tab because there's nothing for the arc to go through but thin air. So I'm going to weld it here to the negative first. So I'm just going to do 3 quick little bumps, or 2 quick little bumps here. I'll go ahead and do 3. Just because I can. Now for the positive, I'm just going to do 2. Now I'm going to make sure that I know where that positive is. I'm going to hit once and then hit once, just like that. And now I'm going to repeat that for the rest of the cells here. And then 1 weld hit here, and then 1 weld hit here. Then I'm just going to put 2 here. There's no point in putting 3, even though I put 3 on the others. Now, this is more complicated than it needs to be. I'm going to tell you honestly, I am overcomplicating this process because I want it done correctly. I do not want this to be messed up in any way. I want it done correctly, so that's why we're taking such care and I'm making this so complicated. Now, here's where the fun parts come in, because now you are going to be connecting these cells together. So you want to make sure, draw it out in your head, it goes negative, connecting tab, positive, connecting tab, positive, connecting tab, positive, connecting tab to your positive. You want to be mapping it out in your head so that way you don't accidentally short out 2 cells that don't need to be. Now what's nice about this is it has all the cutouts, but if your battery pack does not have all the cutouts, then you need to make sure you pay attention to that. Oh, also when you flip it over, make sure not to damage these tabs down here. There we go, a cell stack ready to go and ready to be put back together. Now, the Black & Decker cell stack is going to be the same, so I'm not going to lengthen the video by showing you that process, but it's just going to be the same with these shorter tabs and these shorter here. So let's put the board back on this cell stack. So to be able to put the tabs back in this Craftsman board, we are going to have to get the solder out of these slots that are in the board for the tabs to poke through. So I'm going to use my Hakko 42D solder sucker here, but if you have one of those mechanical ones that suck out, it'll do just fine. But since I have access to this, why not use it? A lot more convenient. Look at that. And there we go, the board ready to go. Now let's go back to the bench and start reassembling battery packs. Okay, so we're back in the lab and I have the cell stack here on the pan vise. So if I can show you this, what I'm going to try to do is bend the tabs up at that point where they were bent up before. So if I bend it here, back where it was before, that's about what I'm looking for right there, if it'll focus. That's what I'm looking for right there. So I'm going to try to go ahead and pre-bend these tabs for when I put the circuit board back on the cell stack. Okay, now let's take and we'll bend them down in their slots right here, and we'll poke them down in their slots, and the slots will help to form the end of that tab. So we're just going to poke it down in its slot. Now these do not have a slot, so I'm just guessing at the power ones, but we'll poke that down in its slot. Make sure that's bent up. We may have to trim these off a little bit. I may have gotten them a little bit too long, so let's bend that down in their slot. Oh, that one looks a little too short. A little ugly, but it will work. And then finally, this last power tab. So I think this right here is what is dictating the bend. So let me straighten that back out, and I'm going to bend it at this point right here. And then we'll slide the circuit boner on here and see if it will fit. I think I may need to trim some of these down, but let's do a pre-check fit here and see where we are at. Okay, so I got a little bit of a better angle. Let's try to slide our circuit board here down on top of these tabs. Now this is going to be probably pretty difficult because all these tabs, of course, are bending their own which ways. So I'm just going to take my tweezers here and try to work it down the best that I can. Okay, that's that side down. What is holding me up on this side? Is it this tab right here? Yeah. Can I get that in place? Oh, there we go, everyone. Look at that. That circuit board is sitting beautifully. Now, let's get it soldered down. And I'm going to go ahead and take and trim this negative off just a smidge. I think it is too tall. Now, traditionally, you go from negative most to positive most. In a configuration like this, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to get my good old faithful Hakko 936 out, and let's start soldering. So let's just start with our negative most here, and I want to make sure I heat the tab up. That is the biggest thing, is heating the tab up. So I have to admit, I do like the single board design, and then the tab that goes across the top to make that connection is pretty neat. So the solder hasn't got to be major, so that is a fine solder joint right there. A little droopy because we're on an incline here. So the next cell tab, technically, to solder down would be this one here. So we would solder down this one. This would be the cell number 1 positive. So let's solder that. Now these are just cell taps. They are not power taps. So they technically do not carry any power. And then cell number 2 positive here. We almost missed this one. This one was just, I mean, it's just barely poking through. It's very, very short. And then cell number 3 positive. I'm not sure if we're going to have to trim these off or not. I hope not. I think they are fine. And then cell number 4 positive here. And we're just going to heat, again, both sides of the tab and solder both sides and make sure that we've got solder wicked up on both sides. And then finally, the main positive. So put a little bit of pressure on the board, make sure it's held down really good. And finally, the main positive. Again, heating both sides of the tab, because we want to get a good solder joint on each side. There we go. And there we go. She is soldered down and ready to be assembled back. Now let's get to the Black & Decker battery. Now the Black & Decker battery is going to be a lot easier because it's just solder joints. So I've already got the tabs. They just fold over. So what I'm going to do after I kick the camera, what I'm going to do is just put some solder here. And then I'm going to just pre-tin without burning the wires. I'm going to pre-tin all of the cell connections. And then the negative right here. Of course, soldering on camera is never as good as soldering because you're nervous and things. So we'll put a dab of solder there and then a dab of solder there. I almost got these on this side too short, but thankfully did not. So let's get our negative here. It goes through this little slot and then over and then just solders down. Let me grab my tweezers. Just solders down just like this. Beautiful. And then the orange wire, orange or red, I'm not real sure, wire goes through these little nubs here. So a lot of times these will have little nubs and stuff for your wire routing, which is very nice. I have to admit, doesn't cost any more money, and it's very nice for when you put together your battery packs. So I say don't cost any more money in the tooling, is what I mean. It doesn't cost any more money in tooling. And then this white wire here, we're going to put together. Again, following our negative most to positive most trend, but we do not have to. That is not a requirement. So, come here. There we go. I got bent back properly in place. There we go. And there's that one. Make sure it goes down in its little slot, of course. And then to our blue wire right here going around, and then to this solder pad right here. Then our yellow wire going down this neat little slot that they have. Again, don't cost any more money when you're getting tooling and things. So, oh, I believe there's a remnant left here from, yep, from my desoldering. It must have got in there. I'm going to poke that down in there. Solder that one. And then finally our positive. And it looks like, I wonder if it, oh, does it route on that side? Or, I wonder which side of that nub it routes on. Let me check my photos real quick before I go doing that. It routes on the inside. Make sure you take photos of everything you're doing, because it wouldn't do to get this far in it and then mess it up. That's just disappointing. That's disappointment right there. I do apologize for the camera angle. I just can't seem to get, there we go, refocused. And then we'll just solder that down just like that. Not the greatest solder joints in the world, but it'll be fine. So there we go, 2 battery packs rebuilt. Now let's see if they will work. Now, I've already checked the Craftsman battery, but I'm going to make sure here that we're all good as far as things go with these cells. So and then come here. There we go. All right. So all the voltages look good. Let's put them in their cases and see if they'll charge. Okay, so a T10 security Torx for the battery. So let's get it put back together. So there goes the cell stack. A little bit of a tight fit, which is good. Nice and snug. Make sure it's all down in there, seated fully. The let's see, the latch goes in just like this. Oh, almost forgot the spring. Make sure you put your spring back just like that. And then your latch goes like this. And then your lid goes on like this, compresses down. And let's put in these screws. And that is the last screw, and there we go. Battery pack ready to be tested. Now let's put together the Craftsman pack. The Craftsman pack uses a T10 security Torx as well. Now I got to admit, the Craftsman is the one that I am the most excited about to see if it's going to work. So let's slide it down in here. Again, it's going to be, a little bit of a tight fit, but just taking, work it down in there. There we go. Oh, I didn't even check. The light does work. Look at that. The light works. Oh, there we go. Snap down in there, and just make sure the back is snapped down in there as well. Okay. Now let's see if I remember how this goes together. So the latch must go at the back. I think the latch assembly goes in here, and then the plate goes on here and holds the latch assembly on, and then that bolts down to the top. So let's get the latch assembly put down. By the way, I'm just assuming they're all the same screws. I don't know. They all look the same. It's fine. It's probably fine. I don't see any screws poking out. Okay, there's the top. The spring is in place. So let's, I don't know about aligning the spring. I guess it's already aligned. So all the screws go in the top. So I'll put one here. Oh, I already picked up an extra one. So I'll put one here, screw it in awkwardly so we get a good camera shot. And then one here in the corner, and again, screw it in awkwardly so we get a good camera shot. In case you didn't know, in case you can't see, I have my arm reached over the camera, screwing this in so it's not in the way. And then I just drop the screwdriver because I can't hold on to it. So let me just screw these screws back in, and we'll be back in a second. Okay, so there we go. The Craftsman pack is back together, and the light does work. So I'm excited to see if this thing will charge, and the Black & Decker battery. So let's get that set up. So I have the charger set up here. Now I already know they will discharge because they have output voltage, but I want to know if they will charge. So got everything powered up. Let's see what happens. For the Craftsman battery, look at that. It is charging for the Black & Decker battery. And there we go. They're both charging. Look at that. They both work. I am excited. We have fixed these batteries. Now, let's just make sure they'll work in their tools, and then we'll be finished with today's video. Now, obviously, I expect them to work in their tools since they will charge, but let's just make sure. Craftsman drill. Look at that power. And then the Black & Decker drill. Look at that lack of power. So there we go. 2 drill batteries rebuilt. Ooh, well, that was a long one. That video actually took me a good long while to make, so I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it. Special thank you to Protechnologies here in beautiful Pilot Mountain, North Carolina. They are my employer. We're a battery pack manufacturer. That's how I have access to do all the things that I did today, was because I work for a battery pack manufacturer, and that's why I did everything tediously and extra the way I did, is because that's the right way to do it, and I want to do everything the right way. So please like, share, and subscribe. I'm going to go home, and I think I'm going to grab me a good old glass of tea, Southern style tea, and I'm going to take me a nap out on my front porch in my rocking chair, because that's what we do when we get tired here in the South. I don't know what y'all do when you get tired, but that's what we do, so that's what I'm going to go do. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.